I came home from visiting my granddaughter in Victoria to find a cheerful sign on my study door. Baby Harper's room. Do not disturb. It read, decorated with pastel elephants and stars. My study, the room where I'd worked for 30 years. The room where I'd kept every photo album from my marriage to Margaret. The room where I'd stored her ashes in a beautiful cherry wood urn on the mantel. I stood in the hallway of my own house, my suitcase still in my hand, staring at that sign. I could hear voices downstairs. My daughter Jessica, her husband Kyle, and someone else. A woman's voice I didn't recognize. I tried the door handle. Locked. Jessica? I called out, my voice echoing through the house I'd bought 32 years ago. Kyle? What's going on? Footsteps on the stairs. My daughter appeared, glowing with that particular radiance pregnant women have. 7 months along. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Dad, you're back early. How was the trip? The trip was fine. Why is my study locked? What's this sign? Her smile didn't waver. Oh, Dad, we have such exciting news. We finally got the nursery set up. I meant to call you, but it all happened so fast. Kyle's mum found the most adorable crib set at HomeSense, and we just had to get everything ready before I'm too far along to help. Kyle came up behind her, that easy salesman's smile on his face. Thomas, good to see you. Yeah, we figured since you barely use that room anymore, it made perfect sense. My mum's been helping us get everything organized. She's downstairs making tea if you want to say hello. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Your mum is here? She's staying with us for a while, Jessica said quickly, just to help with the baby prep and everything. She's sleeping in the living room temporarily. It's all worked out perfectly. Where are my things? My voice came out quieter than I intended. Where's the desk? The filing cabinets? The photos? We moved everything to the basement, Kyle said, like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. Don't worry, we were careful. Well, mostly careful. Some of the boxes got a bit wet from that leak, but I'm sure nothing important got damaged. The leak. The basement had flooded slightly last winter. I'd had it fixed, but there was still moisture in one corner. They'd put my things there. My life's work. My memories. And Margaret's ashes? I asked. Jessica waved a hand. They're fine, Dad. They're downstairs too. Stop being so dramatic. Stop being so dramatic. About my dead wife's remains. I walked past them, down the stairs, through the living room where Kyle's mum had indeed set up a makeshift bedroom, complete with her own furniture that I'd never seen before. She was a large woman in her 60s, wearing a velour tracksuit, and she barely looked up from her phone as I passed. The basement stairs creaked under my feet. I'd meant to fix them. 30 years in this house, and there were always small things to fix. The basement was exactly as I feared. Boxes stacked haphazardly in the damp corner. I could see water stains on the cardboard. I opened the first one. Photos. The albums were warped. Some of the pictures stuck together. Margaret's face, younger, smiling at our wedding. Ruined. The second box. My financial records from my accounting practice. 30 years of files, some of them still relevant for tax purposes. Damp, moldy. The third box. And there, shoved between an old can of paint and a box of Christmas decorations, was the cherry wood urn. Margaret's ashes, treated like garbage, like something to get out of the way. I stood there in my damp basement, holding my wife's remains, and something shifted inside me. I'd been patient for 3 years. Jessica and Kyle had moved in temporarily after Margaret died, said they were saving for a house, said they just needed 6 months, then a year, then 2. I'd told myself I was helping them, that Margaret would have wanted me to support our daughter, but Margaret would never have tolerated this. I carefully carried the urn upstairs, past Kyle's mum, still scrolling on her phone in my living room, past my daughter and son-in-law, who were now discussing paint colors for the nursery. I went to my bedroom, the one room they hadn't invaded yet, and I set Margaret's ashes on my dresser where they belonged. Then I pulled out my phone and called Margaret Chen. No relation to my wife, just a coincidence of names. She'd been my friend since university, and now she was one of the best real estate lawyers in Vancouver. Margaret, it's Thomas. I need to evict my daughter. There was a pause. Are you certain? I found my wife's ashes in the basement next to paint cans. They converted my study into a nursery without asking. Kyle's mother has moved into my living room. Yes, I'm certain. I'll have the papers ready tomorrow morning. In British Columbia, you'll need to give them proper notice. Since they're family and haven't been paying rent, we'll file for a 30-day notice to end tenancy. Meet me at my office at 9. That night, I didn't sleep in my house. I went to a hotel. I couldn't bear to be there, to see Kyle's mum spread out in my living room, to see that cheerful sign on my study door. The next morning, I met Margaret at her office in downtown Vancouver. She had everything prepared. The notice to end tenancy, a list of my rights as a homeowner, contact information for locksmiths and storage facilities. You're doing the right thing, she said, sliding the papers across her desk. I've seen too many cases like this, adult children who take advantage of their parents' generosity. She's pregnant, I said. Everyone's going to think I'm a monster. You're not kicking her out on the street, Thomas. You're giving her 30 days to find alternative accommodation. That's more than fair, considering she's had 3 years rent-free. I signed the papers. Margaret arranged for a process server. By noon, Jessica and Kyle would have legal notice. I went back to my house. Their cars were both gone. Good. I had things to do. I called a locksmith. Had every lock in the house changed. Then I called a moving company. Had them bring boxes and packing materials. I spent the afternoon carefully packing every single thing that mattered to me. Photos, documents, Margaret's belongings, her jewelry, her books. I wasn't leaving anything in that basement to be destroyed by carelessness. I rented a storage unit and moved everything there. Every box, every file, every memory. If I was going to have a war, I was going to protect what mattered. By the time Jessica and Kyle got home at 6, I was sitting in the living room. Kyle's mum, Diane, had been there all day, watching her soaps, completely oblivious to the papers that had been taped to the front door. Dad, what is this? Jessica was holding the eviction notice, her face pale. You can't be serious. I'm entirely serious. Kyle was red-faced, aggressive. You can't evict us. We're family. Jessica's pregnant. For Christ's sake, you have 30 days, I said calmly. I suggest you start looking for apartments. But we don't have any money. Jessica's voice rose. We've been saving for a house. And there it was. The lie I'd suspected for months. Then I suggest you access those savings, I said. You've both been working full-time for 3 years. Jessica, you make $60,000 a year in marketing. Kyle, you're pulling in $70,000 as a sales manager. You've had no rent, no utilities, no property taxes. Where exactly has that money gone? They glanced at each other. Just a flicker, but I saw it. We have expenses, Kyle said. Show me the bank statements. You have no right. I have every right. This is my house. You're my tenants. Or rather, you were. Now you're people with 30 days to leave. Diane finally looked up from her show. Thomas, surely we can discuss this like adults. Jessica needs family support right now. I'm not talking to you, Diane. This doesn't concern you. Of course it concerns me. My son and his wife are about to find their own place to live. And so are you. Her mouth fell open. You can't evict me. I don't even live here. Then it should be easy for you to leave. I believe you have a condo in Burnaby that you're currently renting out for $2,400 a month. According to the rental listings. Anyway, dead silence. How did you? Diane started. I'm an accountant, Diane. Or I was. I'm very good at finding information. I'd spent the previous evening doing research. It had taken me less than an hour to find her property listing, to discover that she hadn't sold her condo at all. She'd rented it out for income while living rent-free in my house. Jessica was crying now. Dad, please. I'm pregnant. You can't do this to your grandchild. I'm not doing anything to my grandchild. I'm setting a boundary with my adult daughter who has taken advantage of my grief and my generosity for 3 years. Mum would be ashamed of you, she whispered. That was the wrong thing to say. I stood up, walked to my room, and came back with a photo album, one I'd rescued from the basement. I opened it to a specific page. Your mum, I said quietly. Helped me set up a college fund for you when you were born. We saved for 18 years. When you graduated, there was $73,000 in that account. Do you remember what you did with it? Jessica looked away. You and Kyle took a 2-month trip to Europe. Then you bought a BMW. By the time you were 25, it was gone. Your mom sat you down and explained that you needed to learn financial responsibility. Do you remember what she said? Dad, she said, Jessica, I love you, but I will not enable you to ruin your life. Sometimes love means saying no. Those were her exact words. I'm saying no, Jessica. You have 30 days. Kyle stepped forward, chest puffed out. You stubborn old man. You're really going to choose pride over your own daughter? I'm choosing self-respect over enabling destructive behavior. There's a difference. We'll see what the rest of the family has to say about this, Diane snapped. Your sister, your brother, are welcome to offer you a place to stay, I finished. In fact, I encourage it. Kyle, doesn't your brother have a 3-bedroom house in Surrey? Another glance between them. Another tell. We can't stay there, Kyle muttered. Why not? Because... He stopped. Because you already burned that bridge? I guessed. How long did you stay there before wearing out your welcome? The truth was written all over his face. I'd called my neighbor, Robert, earlier that day. Robert was retired RCMP, a good man who noticed everything. He'd told me things I hadn't wanted to hear, about the packages that arrived constantly, designer bags for Jessica, about the car Kyle had crashed last year, expensive repair bills, about the time Robert had overheard Kyle on the phone, talking about sports betting. They hadn't been saving. They'd been spending, and probably going into debt. The next few days were a war. Jessica called every relative we had. My brother John called from Calgary, lecturing me about family values. My sister Patricia called from Halifax, crying about how I was abandoning my pregnant daughter. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had opinions about my choices. I listened to each of them. Then I said the same thing. She has 30 days to find a place. If you'd like to help her, you're welcome to offer her a room. Otherwise, I appreciate your concern, but this is my decision. Not one of them offered to take Jessica in. Not one. Kyle tried a different approach. Manipulation. He'd catch me alone and talk about the baby, about how I'd regret missing out on being a grandfather, about how family was supposed to forgive. I'm not stopping you from being a family, I'd say. I'm stopping you from living in my house rent-free. Diane was the worst. She'd corner me in the kitchen, in the hallway, always with that wounded tone. Thomas, I'm just trying to help my son. Surely you understand that. I understand that you're collecting rent on your condo while living in my house without paying anything. I understand perfectly. She'd sniff and retreat, playing the victim to anyone who would listen. But I held firm. I'd changed the locks so they couldn't claim squatters' rights. I'd documented everything. I'd followed Margaret Chen's advice to the letter. Then, on day 15, Robert knocked on my door. Thomas, you should know something. He told me he'd seen them 2 weeks ago, before I came back from Victoria. Kyle and Jessica, measuring the study. Diane was there too, taking notes. They'd been planning this. They'd known when I'd be gone, and they deliberately waited to make their move. There's more, Robert said. I overheard Diane on her phone yesterday. She was talking to someone about getting you assessed. Something about demonstrating diminished capacity. My blood ran cold. They're trying to claim I have dementia? That's what it sounded like. I thought you should know. They weren't just entitled. They were calculating. They'd planned to push me out of my own house, claim I was incompetent, and take over the property. I called Margaret Chen immediately. Get a medical evaluation, she advised. Complete cognitive assessment. Get it on record that you're perfectly competent. I did. The next day, I had a full physical and cognitive assessment. Perfect health for my age. Sharp as a tack, the doctor said. I got copies of everything. On day 20, they staged their intervention. I came home to find my living room full of people. Diane, her other son Marcus, Kyle's sister, several people I didn't even recognize. Jessica was there, looking uncomfortable. Kyle stood at the front like he was running a meeting. Thomas, please sit down, Diane said in her most concerned voice. We need to talk about your health. My health is fine. Dad, Jessica said softly, we're worried about you. You've been acting erratically. The eviction, the accusations. The truth, you mean? We think you might be experiencing some cognitive decline, Kyle said. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Lots of people your age. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos. Before you continue, I want to show you all something. I held up the screen. Medical records. Clear cognitive assessment. Perfect bill of health. I had a complete evaluation 3 days ago. As you can see, I'm in perfect mental health. Would you like to see the rest of the documentation? I have it all, including, I looked directly at Diane, records of your rental property income, and records of your discussion about having me assessed for incompetency. My neighbor overheard that conversation, Diane. He's a retired RCMP officer. Would you like to know what he thinks about conspiracy to commit fraud? The room went silent. You were planning to have me declared incompetent, I said calmly. To take over my house. This wasn't about needing a nursery. This was about stealing my property. Dad, no, Jessica started. Don't. I held up my hand. I found evidence in the study. Kyle's internet history is still on my computer, the one you were using. Searches for how to prove parent has dementia, legal guardianship over elderly parent, inheriting property from incompetent parent. You weren't even subtle about it. Kyle's face was the color of chalk. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. You have 10 days left. On day 30, if you're not gone, the sheriff will remove you. I have legal grounds. I have documentation, and I have witnesses. If any of you, I looked around the room, try to interfere, I'll pursue legal action for harassment and conspiracy. Marcus, Kyle's brother, stood up. This is insane. Kyle, you told me your father-in-law was being unreasonable. But this, he looked at Kyle with disgust. You were trying to steal his house? It's not like that, Kyle stammered. It's exactly like that. Marcus turned to me. Sir, I apologize. I didn't know. My brother told me you were being cruel to his pregnant wife. He didn't mention any of this. Did he mention that your father is difficult to live with? I asked. That he was supposed to be staying with you first, but Kyle didn't want to deal with him? Marcus's jaw tightened. My father lives in a care home. He's been there for 2 years. Kyle knows that. Another lie. There was no father who needed a room. It had all been a story to justify taking over my house. Jessica was crying now, real tears. I didn't know about the house thing. Kyle, you said we were just borrowing the room until... Shut up, Jessica, Kyle snapped. And there it was, the real Kyle. Not the charming salesman, the man who'd been manipulating my daughter. Everyone out, I said quietly. Except Jessica. We need to talk. Diane started to protest, but Marcus took her arm. Mum, let's go. We're done here. They filtered out, Diane throwing me venomous looks, Kyle trying to hang back until I physically walked him to the door. 10 days, I said. And Jessica stays here. You're going to a hotel. You can't. I can. This is my house. You're not welcome in it anymore. If you come back without being invited, I'll call the police for trespassing. I closed the door in his face and locked it. The new locks. The ones he didn't have keys to. Jessica was on the couch, sobbing into her hands. I sat down across from her. Did you know, I asked, about the plan to have me declared incompetent? She shook her head. I swear, Dad, I knew Kyle wanted to stay here, but I thought it was just about the baby. About saving money. Where's the money, Jessica? I don't know. She looked up at me, mascara running down her face. I thought Kyle was handling our savings. He said he had it all invested. But last month I found credit card statements. We're $40,000 in debt, Dad. I confronted him, and he said it was temporary, that his commissions would cover it. But $40,000, on top of 3 years of free living. You need to leave him, I said. I'm 7 months pregnant. I know, and I know that's terrifying. But Jessica, he was planning to steal my house. He's been lying to you about money. Do Do you really think he's going to change when the baby comes? She cried harder. I wanted to comfort her, to hug her like I did when she was little. But I also knew that enabling her, protecting her from consequences, was what had led us here. You can stay, I said finally, until the baby is born. But Kyle cannot. And you need to get a lawyer. Someone separate from him. You need to protect yourself and that baby. What about after the baby? We'll figure it out. But Jessica, you have to stand on your own feet. I'll help you, but I won't let you use me. Do you understand the difference? She nodded slowly. The next morning, Kyle showed up with his mum, both of them ready for another fight. I had the eviction notice, my medical records, and my phone ready to call the police. Jessica's staying, I told them. You're not. You have 9 days to remove your belongings. I'll have movers here on day 30 to put anything remaining on the curb. You can't keep my wife from me, Kyle blustered. I'm not. She can see you anywhere she wants. Just not here. This is illegal separation of a married couple. No, it's me exercising my property rights. Would you like me to call my lawyer and have her explain it to you? He wanted to fight. I could see it in his eyes. But Marcus had obviously talked to him, because he just grabbed a suitcase and left. Diane stayed behind. You're going to regret this, Thomas. When that baby is born, you'll realize what you've lost. What I've lost. Or what you've lost. Your plan to move into my house permanently didn't work out. Did it, Diane? Now you'll have to go back to your condo, the one you've been renting out while lying about having sold it. She left without another word. The next weeks were quiet. Jessica stayed. We didn't talk much, but I made sure she was eating, taking care of herself. She had doctor's appointments. I drove her to them. We were cordial, civil, not close, not yet. Kyle tried calling, tried showing up. Each time, I told him the same thing. You're not welcome here. On day 28, Jessica went into early labor. I drove her to the hospital. Called Kyle, because despite everything, he deserved to be there for his child's birth. He showed up, frantic, and for a moment I saw something like remorse in his eyes. Take care of her, I said. That's all I ask. But the baby didn't make it. 31 weeks was too early. Little Harper, the baby they'd converted my study for, was stillborn. I held my daughter as she sobbed. Kyle was there too, broken in a way I'd never seen him. Diane showed up, and for once, she was quiet. Grief has a way of putting things in perspective. Jessica and Kyle left my house on day 30 as required. They moved into a small apartment Kyle's brother helped them find. I didn't go to the funeral. Jessica asked me not to. She needed space, she said. Time to process everything. I understood. I converted the study back to what it was, brought my things back from storage, put Margaret's ashes on the mantel where they belonged. The house felt empty, but it was mine. 6 months passed. I got a letter, handwritten, from Jessica. She and Kyle were in counseling, marriage counseling and individual therapy. Kyle had admitted to a gambling problem, had joined Gamblers Anonymous. They'd declared bankruptcy, were working on getting out of debt. He'd got a second job. She'd been working on understanding how she'd let herself be manipulated, how she'd enabled Kyle's lies. I'm sorry, Dad, she wrote, for all of it, for taking advantage of you, for letting Kyle disrespect Mum's memory, for not seeing what was happening until it was too late. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. You were right. I needed to face consequences. It was the only way I was going to grow up. She was pregnant again. 4 months along, due in December. I'd like you to meet your grandchild, she wrote. When they're born, if you're willing, not at your house. I understand that's your space, but maybe at a cafe? Or a park? I promise, no expectations, no asking for anything. Just a chance to let you be a grandfather, if you want to be. I thought about it for a long time. About Margaret, about what she would want, about boundaries and forgiveness and the difference between the two. I wrote back, yes, I'd like to meet my grandchild. We'll start slow. Coffee at a neutral location. And Jessica, I'm proud of you for doing the hard work, for going to therapy, for taking responsibility. That takes courage. We met at a cafe in Kitsilano. Jessica looked different, older, somehow, more grounded. She showed me ultrasound pictures, told me about the counseling sessions, about how she'd had to learn to stand up to Kyle, to demand honesty. He's changing, she said. Slowly. It's hard work, but he's trying. And if he doesn't? I asked. Then I'll leave. I know that now. I can stand on my own. We met monthly after that. Always in public. Always with clear boundaries. I was kind but firm. I didn't offer money. Didn't offer to let them move back in. When they asked if I'd babysit when the baby came, I said, maybe. Let's see how things go. The baby was born in December. A boy. They named him Thomas. I cried when Jessica told me. After Mum's dad, she said, and after you, because you taught me what real love looks like. It's not enabling. It's not saying yes to everything. It's having the courage to say no when no is what someone needs to hear. I met my grandson when he was a week old. Held him in my arms in Jessica's small apartment. Kyle was there, quieter than I'd ever seen him. He apologized, said he was sorry for everything, for the manipulation, the lies, the plan to take my house. I was raised to take advantage, he said. My mum, she taught me that family was there to use. I'm trying to unlearn that. It's hard. I looked at this man, this person who tried to steal my home, who treated my wife's ashes like garbage, and I saw someone who was genuinely trying to change. Keep going to therapy, I said. Keep being honest with Jessica. Keep being a good father to this boy. That's all I ask. What about forgiveness? He asked. Forgiveness isn't an event, Kyle. It's a process. Keep showing me you've changed. Give it time. That was 2 years ago now. Thomas is 2. Jessica and Kyle are still together, still in counseling, still working on their relationship. They've been making regular payments on their debt. Kyle's been sober from gambling for 26 months. Jessica has clear boundaries now. She says no when she needs to. They come to Sunday dinner once a month, at my house. But they go home at the end of the night. They don't ask to stay. Don't ask for money. Don't overstep. Diane and I aren't in contact. Her rental income apparently wasn't enough when she had to actually live in her condo and pay her own bills. Last I heard from Marcus, she'd moved in with him. He's a saint. I still have my study. Margaret's ashes are still on the mantel. The house is still mine. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. Evicting my pregnant daughter. Setting such hard boundaries. Missing the birth of my first grandchild. The answer is no. Because that hard boundary, that refusal to enable, is what saved my relationship with Jessica. If I'd let them stay, let them continue using me, we'd be where we were before. Resentful, distant, toxic. Now, when Jessica visits, it's because she wants to. When she asks my advice, it's because she values it. When little Thomas calls me grandpa, it means something. Because it's built on respect, not obligation. Margaret would understand. She always said that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's just fear dressed up as kindness. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it. And every Sunday, when I set the table for dinner, when I hear Jessica laugh at something Kyle says, when I see the way they're working together to be better parents than they had, I know I made the right choice. Some lines should never be crossed. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is defend those lines, even when it breaks your heart, especially when it breaks your heart. That's what real love looks like. Not the Hallmark card version, the hard, messy, complicated version that requires courage and conviction and the willingness to be called the villain in someone else's story. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. And Margaret, wherever she is, I think she'd be proud.